Counter-Strike took the world by storm. The fact that it's coming up on 20 years old and as a series it's still so relevant and still so fantastic speaks volumes about just how mechanically timeless it really is. Despite all its releases, it's not a game that's been tampered with all that much, as rather than being vastly different games, they've all been iterations of the same basic game, and one of the more unusual and unknown iterations appeared on the Xbox in 2003. This game was announced in E3 of 2002, a year after the announcement of Condition Zero, which was set to be the main follow-up to Counter-Strike. The announcement didn't come with any trailers or screenshots, all that was said was that it was going to be released in 2003, Condition Zero was going to be used as a starting point, and Valve and Gearbox were working together on the game as they felt it suited the Xbox Live platform. Gearbox, of course, are now the fairly shady Borderlands developer, but back then they were just a humble, likeable company who helped out with Half-Life expansions and ports. Oh, how far we've come. At the time, Gearbox were also the developers on Condition Zero, but after many problems and delays on Condition Zero, they withdrew from developing it, and it's safe to assume that this is when they withdrew from the Xbox port too. Both fortunately, and kind of unfortunately, EA cancelled the PC port of The Lord of the Rings The Two Towers that Ritual Entertainment were working on, so Valve snagged them to take over the Xbox port and finish off Condition Zero. Now, during development, Condition Zero was slated as a more complete version of Counter-Strike, which would have a single-player campaign that eventually culminated into the Condition Zero deleted scenes. As unveiled in May of 2003's Game Informer, the Xbox port was also going to feature this campaign with an extra 3 missions exclusive to the system. There were also going to be 5 exclusive multiplayer maps that would be designed more horizontally to make up for the controller limitations, and interestingly, there were not going to be any multiplayer bots in this version of the game. Also in May of 2003, the game was playable at E3 and had a trailer release. The playable game was a very basic multiplayer build that didn't show any of the promised single-player content, and the game was still set to come out at the end of 2003. In June, Valve did some internal playtesting on Condition Zero's campaign, and they didn't actually like what they saw. They thought the gameplay had some serious flaws, which is why it became the deleted scenes. On Xbox, however, the single-player campaign just got cut entirely. At this time, Ritual focused all of their efforts on the Xbox port, and Condition Zero would be finished off by another dev known as Turtle Rock Studios, the same dev who would go on to work on Left 4 Dead. At this point, the game was 5 months from being released, so development was fairly rushed. What ended up coming out was a multiplayer-focused game that actually did have bots. The only thing you can do alone in this game is create custom games with bots, and these bots were designed by Turtle Rock's Michael Booth as they were created for Condition Zero. If you can't tell already, development on this Xbox game, as well as Condition Zero, has been nothing short of a nightmare so far. Like at this point, including Valve, 4 different developers have had their hands on these games. It's a wonder this game actually came out, and it did alright too. Following Counter-Strike's Xbox release in November and December of 2003, critics went super crack hot on its lacking single-player and dated graphics due to standards at the time, but criticizing a multiplayer game for not having single-player is dumb anyway, and it sold 1.5 million copies by 2008, making its way onto many of the Xbox's Platinum Hits variations and getting reprinted multiple times. So, without further ado, let's dig into this. As far as how it plays, it's Counter-Strike as you know it. The online is ironically offline, so I spent my time playing against the bots, but as far as I can tell, this has the basic ebbs and flows of Counter-Strike, featuring the classic hostage and defusal modes, so there's not really a lot to say about it. Full disclaimer, the footage you're seeing here is captured on a 360, but I have played this game on an original Xbox, and the performance is very similar. The biggest difference in how this plays compared to the PC version is unsurprisingly the controls. Playing Counter-Strike with a controller instead of a keyboard and mouse is heresy, but they did the best with what they had. I think setting left trigger to crouch was a smart move, the D-pad issues commands, and there's some light auto aim which helps a bit. It's not like Halo or Call of Duty aim assist or anything like that where it moves your screen to aim for you, rather it just sort of helps you out by sending some of your first shots in a slightly better direction than they'd otherwise go. The recoil in this still seems to be CS recoil though, in that it's super exaggerated and clearly designed to be controlled with a mouse. As you've seen, I'm pretty bad at aiming with a controller, so I found that I was much more successful with low recoil weapons like SMGs and shotguns rather than anything else. Also, the tactical shield is in this version of the game, which is the best Counter-Strike meme, though weirdly here it comes as a package deal with a 5.7, so you can't use any other pistol with it, and to add to the ridiculousness of the tactical shield, there's a bug where if you look directly up with it equipped, you can't take fall damage. Amazing. One of the best and most interesting things they did is redesign the buy menu into a wheel, which is of course how CSGO does it now, so this game does at least have some current influence. This menu is simply fantastic. The analog sticks work great and feel intuitive for selecting items on the menu, and having one trigger for secondary ammo and the other for primary is perfect. The buy menu might be a really small aspect of the game, but they pulled it off so damn elegantly that it really needs mentioning. This is the only Counter-Strike with something called dynamic iris recognition, which is a fancy way of saying that the gamma adjusts accordingly over a few seconds whether you're in light or dark areas. It's kind of simulating what an eye would do in that your iris naturally adjusts its size to let in the right amount of light, but while this might have been a neat effect in 2003, now it's just sort of annoying and gimmicky for such a nuanced competitive game. Now, keeping in mind that this was such a big thing at the time, something that's missing here is split screen. It's kind of funny to think about how much split screen cheating would absolutely ruin Counter-Strike if you were on opposite teams, but it still would have been a nice mode to have. Like, me and my brother used to love playing 1.6 over LAN, where it was the two of us versus like 30 bots, and that's something that could have been done with split screen, but it's absent. Oh well. Another small thing that's worth mentioning is that the heads-up display is pretty weird. You've probably already noticed this, but everything is too big, the text isn't transparent at all, and for whatever reason, it isn't very close to the edge of the screen, as if they were trying to compensate for overscan issues or something. You can't adjust anything visual in the settings either, so you're stuck with this ugly thing, but it's not the end of the world. It does get the job done at least. The only other major thing this has over Condition Zero is one exclusive map, and that is CS Miami. It's a fairly unremarkable hostage map which mostly takes place on the inside of a bank with a small street section for CT spawn, and there's not really a lot to say about it. It looks okay, it doesn't play that well, and the hostages get caught on everything as usual. The back of the box says there's 7 exclusive maps on Xbox, and technically when this game came out this was true, but once Condition Zero and all its patches were out, the only exclusive map that was left here was Miami. And even then, a version of Miami was leaked for Condition Zero in the 2003 Half-Life 2 leak, so it's completely playable in Condition Zero anyway. Interestingly, Inferno and Office were added in on the Xbox as free DLC over Xbox Live in December of 2003. Let's do some comparing. Xbox is on the left, Condition Zero is on the right, and immediately you notice the immense oversaturation on Xbox. I don't know what the deal with this is. I've played this game on a few different TVs and monitors now, and it always looks super oversaturated, and it's pretty off-putting, especially compared to every other version of CS. Obviously, you can fix this up a bit by messing with TV settings, but that seems like more hassle than it's worth. Maybe it has something to do with that new lighting trick. Who knows? So what we're looking at here is Dust 2's backyard, and as you've probably already noticed, they're quite drastically different. The shadows are cast in different spots, with the sun being visible on the Xbox, and as a rule of thumb, shadows and skyboxes are always quite different. These green low walls are more green on the Xbox, as are these blue rooftop bits, and the path on the ground is pretty different between versions, with it being more subtle on the PC. Speaking of subtlety, there are so many subtle changes. Like on the Xbox, this is one single giant crate, where on the PC it's a stack of smaller crates. The awnings above tunnel are drastically different, and the windows on Xbox are inlaid where they're just flat textures on PC, presumably to minimize polygons. Interesting. B site. Same, but different. The differences are just like the last comparison really, with different shadows, different skybox, different coloring, and different lighting. Interestingly, a couple of these barrels at the back of sight are different on Xbox, but otherwise these sites are very similar. Here's the view from window looking down at CT. Again, you can see the same differences like the indented windows. Mid, interestingly, has some washing lines going up above on Xbox. Also, the callout for this box is called Xbox, so we're looking at Dust 2's Xbox on Dust 2 on Xbox. Mid is also a bit wider in Condition Zero, which is interesting. A site is annoyingly blinding and hard to look at on Xbox, so let's not spend too much time here, but isn't it weird that there's an extra box on top here, and there's also an extra yellow barrel over to the right? Dust 2 seems to have the most changes like this. All the other maps I directly compared were actually very similar. Like, take a look at Mid Italy here. The coloring is different again, like the windows up on the right are blue on PC and brown on console, but even the shadows in this shot are the same. The biggest difference is the ground texture, where they use different styles of tiling. In many ways, Tunnel is exactly the same, but it showcases the dynamic iris stuff decently by being really dark on Xbox. Stairs are also very similar, though Condition Zero has this sort of weathering going on the walls. Here's a look at CT. You can see behind the fence is emptier on Xbox, and as usual the skybox is different. And here's a look at Market. Interestingly, the top of this building just cuts itself off on PC. If you'd like to see all these screenshots for yourself in their original resolution, as well as some extra runs for Militia and Vostok, a link is in the description below. So at this point in the video I was going to start talking about and comparing the guns. Like, I started screenshotting and writing up some gun comparison stuff between the two games, and I found that some weapons were mostly the same, like the AK and the M4, but some were different, and after spending some time writing up about the differences, I realized that all of the Xbox variations of weapons that I looked at were actually in the Condition Zero deleted scenes. Like, the USP, the Glock, and the Deagle were all just straight from deleted scenes on PC, so that's pretty interesting to me. So yeah, with that, we've had a pretty thorough look at this Xbox port and its development history. I really love Counter-Strike. Like, it's a series I grew up with that means a hell of a lot to me, so checking out this curiosity was always going to be fascinating, but I guess the thing that surprised me most was just how much this is simply a Counter-Strike game. They didn't try and do anything weird or unusual, they just sort of made a faithful version of a popular game, and really, what more can you ask for? Shout out to the Counter-Strike Wikia, which helped a lot, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you want more, and if you want to donate to charity, buy this really shitty looking shirt or this shitty looking mug my friend Token Geek made. It's only available for the next X amount of days, probably like 10 days when this video comes out. 100% of proceeds go to charity, so that's kind of cool. This isn't for me, it's just if you want something goofy with my name on it, and otherwise, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.